Works meeting. I believe it's 5:30. So why don't we call the meeting of the Board of Public Works to order? And before we call the roll, let me state the following. As chairperson of the Board of Public Works, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are, first, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom through the city's IT department for this electronic meeting. To access Zoom, please refer to the agenda or to the city's website for the meeting link. To join by phone, dial 1-929-436-2866. The meeting ID is 944-9962-1910, and the password is 658319. The public may also view this meeting on Comcast Channel 16. Second, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting through public postings, instructions through public posting. Instructions have also been provided on the City of Nashville's website at www.nashvillenh.gov and publicly noticed at City Hall and at the Department of Public Works Administration Building at 9 Riverside Drive. Third, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting via phone or channel 16, please call 603-821-2049 and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the phone number mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. Let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, you should say why they are not physically present for the meeting, and also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Is Diane going to call the roll? Is she here or is it Lisa?
Yes, Diane is going to call the roll.
Please, Diane, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donchis?
I'm here and I'm socially distanced. I'm participating remotely because of the social distancing and the governor's orders, and I am in the room alone.
Commissioner Tease?
Hi, I'm present. I'm at my home. I'm participating to be socially distant. I am here alone, and I'm hopeful the mayor is fully recovered from his illness.
Commissioner Pappas?
I'm here. I'm home in a room by myself, and I am not present due to staying safe from the pandemic.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes, I am present, sitting in my office. There's no one else here, and I am abiding by the governor's orders to social distance.
Commissioner Shoneman?
I'm here and I'm attending remotely due to the emergency order and social distancing, and I'm alone in a room in my house.
All right, good. It seems like we have a full board. Thank you all very much. In response to Commissioner Teves, yes, I have fully recovered. I went through 10 days of isolation, which I finished, I don't know, 9 or 10 days ago. And I was fortunate to have, I had definitely had symptoms like the flu, but I had a relatively mild case of COVID-19. Okay, so the first issue is roll call, which we did. there is next the motion regarding the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Moriarty,
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
discussion? Ms. Thibodeau, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
I'm going to abstain due to the fact that I left the meeting quite suddenly at the beginning.
Now, this is the agenda for this meeting, not the minute.
Okay, then aye.
Okay,
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes?
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes,
Commissioner Shoneman,
Yes,
motion passes. Next item is now the motion to approve the minutes. Commissioner Shoneman,
motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting of August 27th, 2020.
and I think Commissioner Tease is going to abstain on this one.
Correct, thank you.
Could Ms. Thibodeau please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty,
yes,
Commissioner Shoneman,
Yes,
Motion passes. We're now on to public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to the commission regarding any item on the agenda? I don't hear anyone. We'll go to the street department. Item A, Commissioner Tease.
Yes, I move to approve the sole source purchase of asphalt and aggregates from Brock's Industries of Hudson, New Hampshire, and Continental Paving of Londonderry, New Hampshire, in the amount of $144,500. Funding be through Department 161 Streets, Fund General Account Classification 61 Supplies and Materials.
And as Ms. Director Photo informed the board through her memorandum, the purchasing department has asked that we change our long-established procedure regarding this and have the Board of Public Works approve this requirements contract. So this is the first time you've seen such a motion. This year, prior to the change in procedure, two previous purchasing managers had a different position, but prior to receiving the opinion, the department did spend $25,000 on asphalt. But before we go any further, I don't see, I should have recognized him if he's here. Alderman O'Brien, the liaison, are you here? I don't see him. That's the aldermanic liaison. So you've heard the motion. I think you've gotten the director's memorandum on this and the opinion, the new opinion of the purchasing manager. Is there any discussion on this motion?
If I may?
Please proceed. Commissioner Pappas.
So first off, I applaud the new purchasing manager and the legal department because our oversight it really is only as well as the information that we get. But I do just a couple of questions. I did notice we're spending $144,500, and it's to two different companies, and it didn't break down as to how much company got each amount of how. It's a blank amount of money, and it didn't say how much Brock's got and how much Continental Paving got.
Who should answer that, Mr. Ibarra or Ms. Photo? I'm not sure.
Oh,
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So usually we would put a split account, split the funding between the two vendors. And we will go, depending on which plant is operating at the time, like in the winter, we go to Brock's down in Drake for winter mix so we can do our pothole patching through the winter season. So we try to keep both vendors available. They're local to our operation. We use them for our small projects, whether it's patching or a mill and fill program or shim work and patchwork.
Can I continue, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
So, are there any other vendors fairly close. I just, since it's been so long since we, since the board has seen these quotes, I wasn't sure if it might be worth our while to see what the price difference is and to say, well, the convenience is great, but if the price difference is huge, or are there just no other local vendors?
The market's pretty competitive in that aspect. They're all within $1 or 50 cents usually, depending on the material you're looking to get. So we try and monitor that based on the needs of the projects that we're working on. They're strategically located. I mean, it's 15 minutes over the bridge to Continental or Brock's for that matter. So, I mean, the trucks can do a full round in less than 40 minutes typically. I mean, there are traffic considerations, or if the plant breaks down, or if there's backups due to heavy workflow. But they're really convenient and helps us expedite our projects. We get the trucks there first thing in the morning, and we can get the most out of the guys and the crews during the day.
Okay, so have we just not priced from other companies?
We have not. That's based on the strategic geographical location. I mean, we could go to Hooksett, we could run in Milford, but what we lose in trucking, we make up by going over the bridge. And if you were to price them out, you'd see they're competitive.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comment?
Yes,
Commissioner Moriarty?
yes. Superintendent, I just wondering, do you know what we spent last year on this same product?
Off the top of my head, no, but I can get you that number.
Okay. Thank you.
And can you just email the board on that? And we can
I sure can.
sort of in the short term, and then we maybe include your communication on the agenda as an attachment, but if you send it out soon, that would be nice.
Okay, we'll do.
Any other comment? Ms. Thibodeau, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes,
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes,
Commissioner Shoneman,
Yes,
Motion passes. We're now on to the engineering department, item A. Commissioner Moriarty.
move to approve the residential and commercial wastewater service permits and fees as submitted.
Discussion? Could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
yes,
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes,
Commissioner Shoneman,
yes,
Motion passes. Item B, under engineering, Commissioner Tease.
I move to approve a hardship request for 22 Hutchinson Street for excavation to install a sanitary sewer connection.
And maybe Mr. Hudson is, I think Mr. Hudson is here. Yes, I see him. Can you give us a,
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you a brief introduction, and should be somebody here from Fieldstone to address the hardship part of it. But the request is, as noted, it's to enable them to cut into Hutchinson Street to install water and sewer services, and that's to support construction of a single-family home in what's currently a vacant lot. The street was paved 3 years ago in August of 17, and I believe Nate Chamberlain, Fieldstone Consultants, is on the phone to speak to the hardship.
Yes, Nathan Chamberlain, Fieldstone Land Consultants.
okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, so essentially, as Dan mentioned, the street was paved 3 years ago, and the owner of the property has owned it for 10 years and now has a potential buyer and would like to construct the home. And you need to connect the utilities in the street. To do that, you need to open the street. So what we propose to do is go beyond and above what's required in your requirements for a street opening and pave the last section of the road entirely, and to concerns you might have. There's only 2 houses that are on this portion of the road. It's a dead-end street. There's very low impact, and without being able to connect to the utilities, you won't be able to sell the property and build the house.
Okay. Discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Tease.
we have an idea as to the size of home that's being built and the potential tax revenue to the city upon completion?
Yes, do you have a sense of that? Do you have a sense of that?
I don't, it's a single family home, it's standard. I don't think it's anything. There's no dimensions on the plan that we have submitted here. It looks to be around 2,000 square feet.
Well, I
Thank you.
believe the median home price now is above 300,000, which means somewhere in the range of, $7,000.
Thank you.
Any
If I
other-
may?
Yes, Commissioner Pappas.
Again, I would just say, I really think that we have the 5-year moratorium for a reason. And I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mayor,
Commissioner Moriarty.
along that line, I would also say that, as you know, before the streets are paved, all the homeowners get a letter saying, the street's gonna be paved. And if you want to make improvements, now's the time. And this homeowner, according to testimonies, owned the property for 10 years. And so they decided not to make the changes then. So maybe our consultant could address that issue, why they waited now when they could have done it prior to paving.
And can you answer the question?
Sure. I mean, I'm not privy to what occurred before we were involved. If that letter went out, I apologize for them not taking action. Things changed over the course of the 3 years, and this is where we are currently. This really is. I understand your concern about opening up a road that's been paved, but we're already 2/3 of the way through the 5-year moratorium, and we're only talking about 2 homes. It's not a through street. It's gonna be very low impact. And if they're not allowed to make this open, then they'll be forced to put the house on, look at other options as well and septic. I don't think anybody wants that, so I think this is the best alternative.
And I do have a question. What significance or what effect, and maybe this is for Mr. Hudson. It says here that the road will be resurfaced 20 feet beyond either end of the excavated area. What effect does that have?
So in the meeting packet, there was a letter from the applicant and a map, and the map shows, as was described, that this is a dead end portion of the street. So when they cut in and put the sewer and water services in and do the trenching that's required, per the ordinance for the moratorium street, they'd have to go and mill 20 feet beyond the limits of that. But that area would basically reconstruct the end of that dead end street, or at least repave it. And there are the 2 homes on that portion, only the 2 homes that are affected, the home to be built and then the existing home.
And would the repaving be curb to curb or some smaller section?
Yeah, it would end up being curb to curb, given the width of the street and where they're connecting.
Any other discussion or questions from the commissioners?
Yes, Mayor.
Commissioner Moriarty.
I'm just thinking, moving forward, because it seems like now every month this is coming before us, and we're in this dilemma whether to approve a hardship, and we do not really have a legal definition of what a hardship is in this case, according to the ordinance. And so I don't know if that's something that legal could address at some point, if they could actually, describe that, because right now it's just so discretionary on our part.
I can ask them, no question about that.
Thank you.
Now, Commissioner Pappas, go ahead.
I'm terribly sorry to have interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'll defer to you. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, every time you cut into a road, the road is compromised, and that's why Manchester and Concord won their lawsuit against one of the utility companies. And I applaud the city, and I applaud the division, and applaud us for going ahead with our very aggressive paving program, which I think is desperately needed. And I think it's unfair to ask the citizens of Nashua to pay for this program, and then every time we turn around, we're cutting into a road. Again, this isn't a gas leak or that sort of thing. I certainly, if it was a safety issue, we do let folks know in advance if they're going to want to cut into the road. So I've been pretty consistent on this. You know, as I said, but gas main leaks are a different story, but I think it's unfair to the citizens of Nashua to let people cut into our roads before the 5-year moratorium. Thank you.
Can I ask another question of Mr. Hudson? If the paving repair is done curb to curb, do you think the quality of the street is that leaves the street in as good a condition as if this never occurred, or do you think there's still some degree of compromise in its quality?
So the points of potential issue would be at the joints where the milling meets the what was previously constructed. There could be an argument that the trenching that's done, because they have to put back the gravels and they have to over excavate 3 feet, in a lot of cases that actually probably improves the road, because we end up getting a better base, for the 6, 8, 10 feet of width anyway that was reconstructed. So I do also, I am concerned. I do prefer having properties on septic on sewer versus septic. So that is a consideration maybe to consider in this case. But yeah, I think in total the net impact on the road will be minimal if reconstructed according to the requirements.
And your reference to septic, does that imply, or are you suggesting that this house would be built with a septic system if the street is not, if the sewer connection is not made?
I think that's what Mr. Chamberlain kind of noted, was that, the owner, should they desire to move ahead and they're not allowed to cut to do these utilities, that they would look for other methods to provide the utility services. So that putting in a septic system would be one way for the septic, and then drilling a well. And I'm not sure about the feasibility or permeability of either of those things, but that's what was suggested might be an alternate approach.
What about other utilities? Is there going to have to be additional work for gas or for water or anything like that?
Water is included in the construction. So
And what about gas?
water and sewer service being constructed. I don't see any gas on the plan.
So how would they have to come back later for that, or is that?
If they wanted to get a service connection for gas, then that would need to be it would be the same process. They would need approval from the board.
All right, anybody else have comments, questions? Well, let me ask one of Mr. Hudson. So do you think there's a disadvantage to the city of having a septic system out there in, the middle of the city like that? I mean, this is basically not quite a center city, but this is a neighborhood that's pretty close to the center.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think it'd be preferable to have this on city sewer. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Why? Why is it better to be on city sewer?
Just for future issues with septic system failure and what that might have to a budding property.
Okay.
Hello?
Who's this? Who's trying to speak? I don't know. All right, any other commissioners have comments or questions? It sounded like someone who's not a commissioner was trying to say something, but I couldn't get that. Commissioner Pappas.
So, Mr. Mayor, you asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, but I guess the one pointed question that I will ask Mr. Hudson is, how would it hurt the citizens of Nashua to have one house on septic?
I'm not saying that it hurts. I'm saying I think it's preferable to have them on city sewer.
Excuse me, you have the owner on the line.
All right, what is your name? sir. Well, first of all, wait, just let Mr. Hudson finish answering Commissioner Pappas's question. And then
I
we'll.
apologize. I was on a TV delay here. I'm good now, though. Sorry about that.
And then we'll turn it over to you. If you would
Thanks
like.
so much.
Yeah, I think I was done. I mean, in my mind, I view this as a judgment thing. We're trying to preserve the pavement. But there's other extenuating circumstances, would we rather have them on sewer instead of septic? And, I don't get to vote. If I did get to vote, then I probably would, support this hardship request, given that there's 2 properties on the end of the street, and given the septic issue, but, certainly deferring construction until they could do that, or, I'm sure a septic system will be constructed and designed and constructed in compliance with all the regulations. So that also would be acceptable.
All right, now we have the owner on the line. Sir, could you please introduce yourself, give us your name and address, and then offer your comments?
Sure. My name's Howard Chang, 131 Daniel Webster Highway, Suite 626 in Nashua.
And did you wish to offer something to the board on this?
Yeah, I could answer a couple of things that probably would be helpful to clarify, Mr. Mayor. There is no gas service on that part of the street. The source of heat would either be on-site propane or oil. The houses around it have oil heat. I believe at least the one next door to it has oil heat. The neighbors have told me that they are in favor of something being done with the lot, and a new single-family home would be desirable. I didn't get any letters to that effect. It could be our fault, but we never received a letter. We don't live on the street, and we didn't receive a letter, as far as I've asked, that said that we're going to pave the street. If you need to do any work there, please get it done beforehand. I found out that's what it is. We had approval a number of years ago to put a 2-family there, and we ran into some title and a boundary line issue with a neighbor that was going to give us some land, and that's why we got delayed. We had a approval from the city and plenty of frontage and square footage to do a 2-family. What we ended up doing was reverting it, collapsing. It's unusual, but we collapsed the division about like 4 years ago. We found that would have to be the only solution, and made it back into a large 1-family lot. At that time, we approached some people at the city, and they said for some reason we did not have, didn't meet all the requirements for a single-family home, although we'd already met them for a 2-family. I didn't know what to do, so we had Brad Westgate approach the planning department, I think it was, and research it and clarify that we did have a conforming single-family lot at this time, and it was buildable, and there was nothing, we didn't have to get into variance or anything. We had more than enough dimensional requirements. So the hardship here, from my point of view, is based on some decisions and phone calls and emails with the city, we got delayed. We didn't get a notification, as far as I know, certainly not certified mail. And we've been paying taxes on this vacant lot for 10 years. Right now, during COVID, it is really impacting us to keep the taxes up to date. And we really would ask very kindly if they would allow us to build a home here, put the property on the tax rolls to benefit the city. The impact, like the engineer said, we simply want to connect to water and sewer. There's no gas. There's no other underground utilities that I'm aware of at all that would be servicing the lot. We have a builder that's waiting and ready to go, and it would take the financial burden, although that may not be what a hardship is, but it would certainly, it makes the most sense to me, and I'm trying not to be biased in that. But if there's any other questions for me or any other explanations or clarification I can give, I'm more than willing to. The engineer's been very busy, and it's been hard to get that on the roll as well. I thank you for letting me speak, Mr. Mayor.
I have 2 questions. Number 1, what do you think the house will sell for? And number 2, what are the taxes on the vacant lot?
The taxes on the vacant lot are, well, here's the situation. They were very low as a 2-family. They were lower. They're being billed, unfortunately, and this is wrong too, as 2 non-conforming single-family lots that can't be built on. We have consolidated those together and we're still being taxed like we have 2 lots there. It's a little over $3,000 a year now. It used to be about 2, I believe.
And
It's
what do you think the house would
$3,000 a
sell
year.
for? What would the house sell
The
for?
builder that's looking to build there with a garage under or attached, depending on how he does it, it's about 425 to 450.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or
And may I
questions?
just say one more thing?
Yes.
I understand, I wouldn't ask for a hardship. I understand that it's pretty, I understand the 5-year, but I'm hoping under these unusual circumstances that perhaps the board could see it to make the exception here. And I think if anybody to say, well, you gave him an exception, I think it's very unusual, and it wouldn't be some kind of a case where everybody has this situation. Thank you.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for the owner?
I don't have questions for the owner, but I would like to comment if I may.
Please.
I think in general, we have not granted or have not supported these requests when they're for properties that are on the main streets that are likely to get a lot of traffic and really don't benefit many people. But I think that this is a special case, and I think that if we're able to, let this go forward and help one of the taxpayers, and it's not going to have a big impact on, people. It's a dead end street. There's not a lot of traffic. I think that if we can do it, I think we should.
Mr. Mayor?
Who's Commissioner Tease?
I'll echo Commissioner Shoneman. I know we take these on a case-by-case basis, but I think the impact to everyone else is very low. It looks like they're going above and beyond to do the repairs. And if I understood Mr. Hudson correctly, he says the road really shouldn't be negatively impacted. So I'm going to support it if we vote on it.
I consider it a close question, but I find Commissioner Shoneman's comments persuasive, so I'm likely to vote for it. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? All right, Ms. Thibodeau, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
No?
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for appearing, and we're now on to item C. I believe we're on Commissioner Shoneman.
I move to approve the purchase of an overhead 360-degree vehicle detection camera system from Electric Light Company for the West Hollis Street, Elm Street signalized intersection for an amount not to exceed $23,000, funded partially through the West Hollis Street Traffic Mitigation Fund. Funding through Departments 160, Admin Engineering, and 161 Streets. Fund Trust, $14,500. In General, $8,500. Account Category 71, Equipment. Activity, Infrastructure Improvements.
You've heard the motion now. Could you address this, please, Mr. Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as described, we're asking for approval of a 360-degree vehicle detection camera. You may have seen a few of these up around the city. It's a single camera that picks up all directions of traffic, and it's a superior detection device versus loops. The issue we have with looped detectors is they currently get damaged either through utility work or milling for paving work and that sort of thing. So as we have needs to, improve detection at intersections, we're trying to implement this this other type of device. They have the added benefit of letting us assess performance in real time. We can access the cameras and see, if we get a report of an issue, we're able to access the cameras and view that remotely, which is important during these times. And also enables us to continually count vehicles. So over time, enables us to intelligently make adjustments to signal timing, that sort of thing. So for that reason, we're submitting this request.
Commissioners,
If I may,
please, Commissioner Pappas.
I think that this question is probably to, I don't know if it's probably to the director. So it's interesting to find these different funds. I see the West Traffic Corridor Fund, $15,000. My first question is how is that? Where do we get that fund from, and how do we replenish the fund? And then my second question is for the 8,000. It says 8,000, which include contributions received from private companies towards the city's roadways and restoration work. Is that whole amount of money from what the utilities put in again? And if someone can explain the West Corridor Street traffic fund, or the West Hollis Street traffic corridor funds.
Ms. Photo? You're on mute.
I was going to let Engineer Hudson answer that, but I can answer that for you. Sure. So the West Hall Street Traffic Mitigation Fund is set up for work that is done in that corridor. So certain contractors who are doing work that impact that corridor will donate a certain amount of money, and it's put in that fund so that we can use it for this type of thing, for improvements in the corridor.
Okay.
And I believe, Commissioner Pappas, you had an additional question beyond that, I think, but if so, could you?
Yes, what it says, the $8,000 received from private utilities, is that the same fund or a different fund?
You want to speak to that, Dan? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the funding detail in the motion, was finalized by our budget manager. And I'm not that familiar with each of these funds, but the fund that was selected to withdraw from was that infrastructure fund. Memo, I had noted it was coming from contributions from private utility companies. Pennachucky and Liberty had done work in that area, and they made significant contributions towards our road program for the work that were done in that area. So, they have contributions, and I don't know if that money is specifically coming from their contributions, but they have contributed to work in that area. And as Lisa had said, the corridor funds, those are contributions made by different, probably a number of sources, but oftentimes developments. Instead of making a particular improvement, they'll contribute towards the corridor so that the city's afforded the opportunity to make improvements along the corridor that perhaps their individual development wouldn't warrant, but that are needed. So we kind of pool up money from a bunch of different sources and then make the improvements when we're able.
Okay. Can I ask one follow-up, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And I'm not sure who it's directed at. So when we do our budget at the end of the year, are we given fund balances and such in such funds when we're supposed to be going through our budget? I think we usually, I know the budget's passed sometime in June by the Board of Aldermen, but we usually take a peek at it sometime in the winter.
I can answer that, Commissioner Pappas. So you are given a snapshot of the balance in time, but oftentimes by the time the numbers are somewhat different by the time the budget is actually approved, because you may be given numbers in January or February, and then you're approving sometime in March or April, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, so you are given balances, but they do change by the time you're approving the budget, if that answers your question.
Sort of, and again, I don't have our budget in front of us, so which page would that be? Obviously, it's not going to be on what we pay out. Which section of the budget will we see these different kinds of funds available?
I think it wouldn't be in the budget. It would be on a
wouldn't be.
separate communication that the director or somebody in the department would issue. It's issued to you. But
Are you
Director Photo?
Yeah, Commissioner Pappas, are you talking about like that West Hollis Street mitigation fund? Are you talking about those particular funds?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, like little
Okay.
funds like that, you know,
So
I
the-
mean, you know,
Yep.
if we've got a lot of little different funds like that, it's hard to keep track of them. So I'm just curious if we kind of get some sort of a
Yes.
update, we get our budget every year.
Yes, so if you look in the back of, it's online, I think too, but if you look in the back of the budget book, and I don't remember what color the pages are, they're different colored
Okay,
pages.
gotcha.
But I can look that up for you and tell you. I don't have a budget book in front of me. It does list all of those funds so you can look at what the balances are.
now these,
Okay.
you may be referring to different things. The budget book that Director Photo is talking about is the budget book that I proposed to the Board of Aldermen. And it
Mhm.
includes all of the different reserves and trust funds that the city has. But I think Commissioner Pappas is asking about the budget that the Board of Public Works sees and reviews and approves as a request to the mayor, you know, to me as the mayor.
Right.
I think that's what Commissioner Pappas is asking about. And I think she's asking, are we, the commissioners, informed of those balances at the time of or before we, the commission, vote on the DPW recommended budget?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor, that's what I'm asking.
No, we have not, Mayor. We have not in the past gone over the special revenue funds.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Of course, go ahead.
If it's not a huge hassle, I understand that a lot of times there's a lag and when we get a budget and the Board of Aldermen, but it's just since we get a snapshot of these funds during the year, if it's not a huge problem for our financial director, I wouldn't mind having that like almost as an addendum to our budget if it's not a huge problem.
It's not.
No, we can
So
print.
what you're suggesting is that when the department proposes its budget to you, the commission, for your consideration, that they also communicate with you regarding the balances of any relevant reserve account.
Right, and I think we all fully understand the time lag between when we see the budget. It's just interesting to be able to have in the back of your mind these funds that are available when we're taking a look at them throughout the year. Just a suggestion, not a criticism.
I don't think that'll be a problem.
No, we definitely can do that.
All right.
Thank you.
We will take that and act on that next spring or next winter,
Thank you.
when the budget comes to you. All right, but any other questions or comments regarding item C that on which we have a motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Just a comment, Mayor. I'm actually happy to see the city move away from the loop system. To me, it never made sense that we have these loops under the ground and they're constantly breaking down and needing repair. So I like what we're doing here. So I'd be in favor of this.
Thank you.
Yep.
And this is works better than the loops, even though it costs more money. But in the long run, maybe the loops cost more money because they always got to be repaired, and then they don't work half the time. And I think we got complaints about this intersection last winter, didn't we? The light wasn't working, that wasn't the cars weren't activating.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else have comments, questions? Ms. Thibodeau, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Schoeneman,
Yes.
Motion passes. We now have the informational items, or the informational item regarding street opening permits, emergency ones. Any questions or comments on this informational item? We'll move to administration. Under item A, we have several informational items, outdoor dining, DPW facility update, and the director's report. And I assume the director is going to handle those 3 items.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Just a very quick update on outdoor dining. In our rules and regulations, it did not allow for the use of heaters. That was not a public works rule. That was from the fire marshal. And he is now going to allow heaters, which will allow the restaurants downtown to be able to extend their outdoor dining season. So I just wanted to inform the board of that, even though it wasn't really a public works rule. There's really no update on our DPW facility. We haven't from last month when I gave an update. But I did want to let you know that on Tuesday, I believe the Board of Aldermen approved the sale of Burke Street to Nashua, to Burke Street Nashua LLC for $3,650,000. And the closing date is no later than December 31st. So I'll keep you updated on that. But I did want to let you know that the Board of Aldermen through resolution R20-059 did approve that on Tuesday night. And
also on that same sort of a related, the Board of Aldermen also approved an escrow of $200,000 to make up the difference between the previously approved purchase price of 3.9 and the now approved purchase price of 3.7 to close that gap. Any on those first 2 items, any questions? First 2 informational items, any questions or comments from the commission?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, so for the status of, is it like a closing date for what we have now? Is it similar to what we had in like December of 2019? And it's not done until the closing, but we're thinking it's closing?
Correct. So there's a purchase and sale agreement, but we still own it, we the city, and the closing has not taken place, and is, you know, we don't have any proceeds yet. And we went, you know, but we might, assuming this thing does close on, you know, by the end of December.
Okay, so the $200,000, if I can continue, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
The $200,000 escrow, is that from the last offer from this particular group?
No.
And if
No.
Okay, so it's the difference between the last offer from December of 2019?
Yeah, so this was direct, this is the escrows reallocate funds that had been appropriated by the Board of Aldermen for fiscal 20, in other words, the year that ended June 30, you know, this past June 30. And the Board of Aldermen's action took $200,000 of those unexpended funds and put them into an escrow, meaning kind of a reserve for this project, so that if this closing takes place in December as scheduled, there would be enough to equal the $10 million budget for the project, comprised of the $6 million bond authorization, or $6 million, I believe, right?
yes.
$3.7 million of proceeds from the sale, assuming that takes place, and $200,000 from this escrow, which would total 9.9 as opposed to 10. But it helps to fill the gap, as you suggested, Commissioner Pappas, between what we had hoped to sell the property for last time and what we may be able to sell it for this time.
So it was only a $200,000 difference between the purchase and sale agreement we had in December 2019 and this one, or?
Yes, because the last one was 3.9 million and this is 3.
Oh, okay. Sorry to interrupt. I was pleasantly surprised because for whatever reason, I thought this offer was significantly lower. I'm sorry to have interrupted, Mr. Mayor.
Well, that was fine. There was no interruption. And yeah, so the difference is 200,000, and the director had said, well, you know, if it's going to sell for 3.7, we still need an extra 200,000. So the Board of Aldermen agreed and reserved the money. All right. Any other questions or comments on those two items? If not, let's go to the director's report.
Okay, I'll go through this fairly quickly. The first slide is the sidewalk replacement that Sunshine Paving did. They did some sidewalk ramps and landing on Nut Street for ADA compliance as part of the 2020 paving program. Diane, if you get to my first slide. There you go. The next slide is again sidewalk repair on East Hollis Street, adjacent to the Headliners store. And this again is part of the 2020 sidewalk program. There have been some questions about the East Hollis Street project, and I know that it took longer than we had expected. And I was wondering if engineer Hudson would be willing to just speak to that a minute, just to let folks know what has been going on with that project and when we expect it to be fully completed.
Sure, thank you. And I echo the director's input. You know, we appreciate everybody's patience. We originally bid the project, and the contract date had an assumed start of May 18th and a finish of August 21st, so a 3-month construction. We were delayed due to COVID in getting the award made about a month, so that in June. And then we brought forward a change order which added some work. It probably added about a week's worth of work. We've had about 2 weeks delay due to discovering some drainage that needed some repairs. So we had to inspect those and found that things were in worse shape than we anticipated. So there's about 2 weeks delay there. And then we had about 2 weeks of delay for the utility work. As you may have seen through that section, there's all new utility poles. They've cut off the old poles, getting them out of the way of the curb line, post curb line, which is great. So all those things added up, we would have expected with the initial month delay and then more than a month of additional delay, we would expect it to be about 2 months longer than our original estimated date at the end of August, which would have been end of October. But things are on track and moving well, and we expect to finish by mid-October. There's a plan actually to pour concrete on Saturday for everything that's been excavated to date. And then the contractor will ADA improvements, which are added in at the corners of the East Hollis Harbor Ave intersection. And then they'll go back to the other end of the project between Medical Center Drive and CVS. And in timeline, the paving program will be finished paving the road. So it's been a long time coming. It's been a very challenging project with the utilities and the items that were in disrepair, the drainage. But we're nearing completion, and everything should be in good shape by the middle of October.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, the next slide. We're on, keep going, Diane, please, thank you. This is a Mine Falls Trail Day on August, which was held on August 22nd. We had over 30 volunteers that helped collect trash and worked on some erosion projects. So thank you to those volunteers. We rebuilt a retaining wall on Monza Drive. It had been leading into the sidewalk, and the homeowner was very pleased and wrote us a very nice letter saying thank you. This is a picture of the Birch Hill sidewalk project. Our street crews were pouring new tip downs as part of the new sidewalk on that street. We have begun our Lincoln Park rehabilitation. This is a picture of our street crews paving the base course of asphalt for the parking area that's being reconstructed. If you've been to Lincoln Park lately, you notice that there's a tremendous amount of heaving. So we're trying to, from the old landfill, so we're trying to repair that. We'll also be putting in a brand new playground, which will be very nice. The next slide is a picture of just a sinkhole repair on Hyacinth. what we found, and we often find this, is we found settling from a stump that had been buried, and that created the sinkhole. So we removed the stump and compacted and replaced the new sidewalk. The next is a sidewalk on Cortlandt Street, which had caused multiple sidewalk panels to be pushed up. Again, it was caused from a stump, and we replaced a section of sidewalk. About 80 feet of sidewalk was replaced on Cortlandt. The street crews have been working citywide to repair missing and broken berms and installing berms to alleviate water issues. This is some berm work that's being done on Shelley Drive. Our Fuel Island project has been completed, and we received operational approval from New Hampshire DES, and it's a tremendous improvement. If you haven't been down there to see it, you should. The next is the digester at the wastewater treatment plant. Uses hot water inside a heat exchanger to heat the solids. And every 6 months or so, we take it down completely to clean it. It's a picture of that. We have 3 secondary clarifiers, again, at the wastewater treatment plant. Each shift, the operators operators check the tanks to see how well the tanks are settling and help prevent process upsets. Our curbside collection of oversized items will be ending for this season already. The last date to request a pickup will be Friday, October 23rd, and collections will be ending on Friday, October 30th. So if you have a last minute oversized item that needs to be picked up, now's the time to do it. We have our next household hazardous waste collection is scheduled for October 3rd from 8 to noon. We've been holding them at the Park and Ride at 25 Crown Street. That's been working extremely well. And so we'll let folks know that. Pool, once again, it's time to close pools. We ask that residents please do not put pool chemicals in their trash. That's a source of fires both in our trucks and at the landfill. When they're compacted in the trucks and of course at the landfill. So please do not put pool chemicals in your trash. They can be brought to the household hazardous waste collection on October 3rd. Another thing too, I want to remind people that is not on the slide is ashes, either from campfires or from your fireplaces. Please do not put ashes in your toters unless you're very certain that there are no hot coals. People do this all the time. They think that it's just ash and it's not. And that starts, you can just imagine when you have ashes that have coals in them, and you mix that with garbage, it'll start a fire in our trash trucks, and nobody wants that, or in our landfill. So please don't put ash unless you're absolutely certain that there's nothing left in it that could spark a fire. The other thing we want to remind folks is please do not put face masks, gloves, sanitizing wipes, or any other PPE in your recycling. We're starting to have a bit of a problem with that. So please, let's make sure that we don't put any of that type of material. All of that should be put in the trash. And the Fort Hills Landfill and Recycling Center will be closed on Monday, October 12th for Columbus Day. So all curbside collections will be delayed that week by 1 day. And that's it. Any questions? Oh, that's very cute. That's Diane's daughter. Could you all see that? Yeah.
Adorable.
Any other questions or any thoughts, questions for the director? I don't see anything. If not, we will go to commissioners' comments. Any commissioners' comments?
If I may?
Commissioner Pappas.
In the next couple of months, when it's convenient for the director, I know that we've talked about the safety for our employees during COVID. That's something I take very seriously. And I know that we have rules about if there's more than one person in the truck and the masks. And my understanding is that folks have been really good about that. But we also have indoor employees, and I think for us to be able to see that in writing is really helpful. The other thing is, because the city has been, so proactive with masks, which, I agree with, I think sometimes we might take a look at our own practices, number one, to help improve safety, and number two, to model good behavior. I know right now we don't know a whole lot about COVID. And initially it said, well, if you're 6 feet apart, you really don't need a mask indoors. And I will say this summer, I went in, my son got a new car and I registered his car. I made the appointment. I waited in line. Everyone wore masks. It was fine. And we didn't have to wait terribly long. It was hot outside. There was a nice fan going and there was a tent to save you from the sun. And I don't go to motor vehicles very often. It's just when someone gets a newer used car is when, I tend to go in there. And the folks who work there are always terrific. But when I went in, I had a mask. People were very good about the social distancing. And when I went to sit down, there was a lot of plexiglass around, which was terrific. And when I looked at the employees behind the plexiglass, they didn't have masks, and I felt very safe from them, but I felt a little bit badly for them because you don't. If anyone who lives with younger people, I know we all know that the 20-year-olds and the teenagers are the ones that are getting COVID a lot now, and I know it's burdensome to wear a mask during the day, but I do really hope that if we have employees that intermingle like the motor vehicle department does, that we have them wear masks when possible for their own protection. I think that I think that the public is always very well protected from the employees because of the plexiglass we put up. But I really think that we should model good behavior and really think in terms of having people wear masks as often as possible when we're breathing air in common areas and we're using the same printers and that sort of thing. That's all. Just a suggestion, not an edict, but I really would like us to take a hard look at that because I would like to keep our employees safe, and I'm glad that the mayor has done well, and I hope that all the city employees who have got positive COVID tested well. But I think that we might learn from that. But that's my suggestion. If in the next couple of months we can have for our division, if we can just have kind of in writing what we're doing to prevent that. And then my other suggestion is maybe flu clinics for city employees, certainly including our, folks within our division. I know when I was teaching, they always offered flu shots for teachers, and it was great. And I hope we're able to offer as much protection for our employees as we can. Thank you.
Mayor, may I just speak to the mask issue really quickly? Just
Yes.
because this might make Commissioner Pappas feel better. When our employees must wear masks at all times when they're not in their individual offices. So if you see any of us enter our offices in the morning, when we get out of our vehicles, we put our masks on and we keep them on until we get to our offices. When we come out of our offices and in common areas, we put our masks back on. So I'll use Engineer Hudson as an example. If he comes to my office, he will come, put his mask on before he leaves his office, come to my office, and he will speak to me with his mask on. in my office. So we are very, very careful about that. We have been practicing that. In addition, if you're more than one person in a vehicle, you must wear a mask. So we're trying to be very vigilant, and I'm pretty proud of our track record. We honestly have not had anybody in Public Works who has contracted the coronavirus, and I think that's partly due to how vigilant we've been about it. So, every time I say that, I'm worried that tomorrow there's going to be the first case, but I think we've done pretty well so far. So, and those are good suggestions, Commissioner Pappas, and we certainly can let you know about some of the other things that we're doing.
Thank you. And as I said, the flu clinics, the other thing I recognize is if we have people working with the public, and I know in motor vehicles, there are times when if you have someone who either has a hearing problem or if English might be a second language, that the worker may have to take their mask off while they're speaking through the plexiglass. But I do think that as I said, I'm just thinking of the safety of our employees, and I'm really glad that you gave that suggestion. I just my suggestion about the flu shot clinic, it just was in response to the poor folks at City Hall who have gotten COVID, and fingers crossed. I really hope everyone comes out okay, but you kind of never know. So that's why I thought I'd share the story, and I thank people for listening. Thank you.
Any other commissioners' comments?
Yes,
I would
Mayor.
like,
Commissioner Moriarty.
Just a reminder to the commissioners that tomorrow we say goodbye to Superintendent Caggiano at Greeley Park. So if you can make it, that'd be great.
And that's from noon to 3, correct?
1 to 4, I believe.
1 to 4.
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. 1 to 4, correct.
Okay. 1 to 4. Any other commissioners' comments?
I would like to comment briefly.
Please go ahead.
I realize this is not going to be a very popular opinion, but I know that in the last year, it's been a rough year for everybody. And speaking personally for my family, our income has gone down and our property taxes have gone up. And we've had to make some hard decisions this year as far as what we are going to spend or not spend on. We're looking at spending a lot of money for a building for Public Works. I know it's necessary. I'm sympathetic to Public Works, the workers and the conditions that they're working under. Certainly, I'm wondering if right now is not the time. We're looking at this new riverfront project, which is projecting $13 to $19 million for riverfront development, $20 million for Performing Arts Center. How many millions for the middle school project? It's a lot of money. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think it's stretching our taxpayers to the limit. It's a lot. And I personally feel like the spending is just huge, and that maybe now is not the time for a lot of these projects. I think they can and will wait to a better time. I'm all for paying our taxes and infrastructure of the city and all the great things that Public Works does, but putting our taxes towards some things that can probably wait. I feel like that's a big burden on the taxpayers. That's my feeling.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners' comments?
If I may, I just would. I think that was Commissioner Schoeneman. That was it's a very sensitive response to what folks are going through, and I do think that most of us have seen an impact on our income. And we might reevaluate how we do how some of the projects are done. And I would agree about the general city items that we're taking a peek at spending an awful lot of money on. And I would certainly be in favor of taking a look at restructuring our projects so that we can address some of the health and safety issues, and maybe put things off. I would agree that it is unfortunate. I like to remain optimistic, but our financial times kind of look the same as when we went through the Great Depression last century. So I think those were sensitive comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Tease.
I think what Commissioner Shoneman and Pappas spoke about is very important, right? We need to understand the entire financial picture and the hard time, certainly with record unemployment, or at least of late record unemployment, uncertainty with respect to COVID and a potential vaccine. We have to take those things into account. I also am a firm believer we can't just look at things in a vacuum. We need to look at the entire picture, and that the country has suffered from pandemics before and came out of them. Also, in the interest rate cycle we're in, and as we all know, interest rates have been all over the board. For those folks that owned a home in the early 1980s, they were paying upwards of 12 and 13% on their mortgage, and even higher for a vehicle. And today we find ourselves at the very bottom, at the lowest rates have been ever. And if we don't consider that, I think we're blind to the entire picture. But from just as an example, financially, because we are obligated and will do the right thing for the citizens. But if the interest rates were to move, and let's say we delayed this project for 2 years or even longer, and rates move by 6%, that would add an additional $360,000 per year in debt service. So I just want to make sure when we cross this bridge that not only are we considering what we're facing today, but what we'll face tomorrow, next year, and 10 years from now, and ensure we're looking at the entire financial package.
Anyone else? Well, of course, the biggest project on the horizon is the school project, which is very expensive. For these capital projects, we get, one can certainly debate whether any project is, whether the benefits are worth the cost. The one thing we've been hit with for which we get no benefit, zero benefit, is the increase by the state of New Hampshire of 4.4 million in the city's bill for the state retirement system. And that becomes due, that additional 4.4 million becomes due next fiscal year, not this one, this is fiscal 21, but becomes due in fiscal 22. In addition to COVID-19, in addition to some of the projects that have been mentioned, this, adds a burden on taxpayers at exactly the wrong time when, again, we receive no benefit whatsoever from this. So, I wish the state would help us out with that, and we're trying to get relief, but, we'll see. Anyone else have any comments? We do have a personnel section here. If there are no other comments, we'll go to personnel. Item A, I forget where we are, but I will say Commissioner Moriarty.
Yes, I move to accept the resignation of Stephen Waterstrat, street foreman, effective August 28th, 2020.
Okay. Any discussion? Could Ms. Thibodeau please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
With regret,
okay, Commissioner Pappas,
Yes?
I'm not.
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman,
Yes.
Motion passes. Now, does someone have the motion to go into non-public session to consider other personnel items?
Mayor, we haven't been going into non-public. We've been doing this in public unless the commissioners have any
Because
objection to that.
unless we come across something that's controversial.
Right. Correct.
Okay, so the next motion will be Commissioner Tease.
yes, I move to approve the selection of Mr. Sean Dennehy of Chelmsford, Massachusetts to the position of wastewater collection system operator at the wastewater treatment facility. Starting salary for this position will be $24.49 per hour. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater, Fund Wastewater, Account Classification 51 Salaries and Wages.
Questions, comments?
So if you look at his resume, Mr. Dennehy started, he actually was with a dispatcher with the Nashville Police Department. And he came over as a wastewater assistant and now is moving it just what these wastewater assistants were designed to do. He's moving up into wastewater collection system operator. And he's been an excellent employee, and we're pleased to be able to provide him with this opportunity.
Could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes?
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman,
Yes.
Motion passes. We're now on to item B, Commissioner Shoneman.
I move to approve the selection contingent upon the acceptable results of criminal and driving records, checks, and pre-employment drug test, Mr. Caleb Williams, in Milford, New Hampshire, to the position of groundsman 1, the Parks and Recreation Department. Starting salary for this position will be $21 per hour. Funding is through Department 177, Parks and Recreation, Fund General, Account Classification 51, Salary and Wages.
So,
Discussion?
so Mr. Williams, we're actually very excited about this candidate. We don't often have candidates for groundsman 1 who have CDLBs. He does have a CDLB. He will be able to plow. He does have some plowing experience. And right now he's driving a box truck back and forth to Boston. So you can do almost anything once you've done that. That's very difficult. He's also works at the Milford Fire Department, very articulate young man, and I think he'll be a great addition to the Park and Rec Department.
Anyone else? Could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes?
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman.
Yes.
Motion passes. Commissioner Tease, do you have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Could you please call the roll?
Mayor Donches,
Yes.
Commissioner Tease,
Yes.
Commissioner Pappas,
Yes?
Commissioner Moriarty,
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman.
Yes.
Thank you all, and the meeting of the Board of Public Works is adjourned at 6:51 p.m.